Hey everybody, want to welcome you into a honest to goodness hangout. I have with me Tommy Alderman from Alderman Farms. Tommy, please go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Tommy Alderman from Alderman Farms. Yeah, over in Brookhaven, Mississippi. I hope some of you may know who I am, be familiar with my channel from Jared and I bantering back and forth from a while. But if not, you can see our channel name in my banner beneath my picture. Check us out when you get a chance.
All right, and you're probably familiar with me as much as you are with Tommy. My name's Jared, and I've got J&J Acres on YouTube. Same thing, you can see the YouTube URL in my banner down below. So the purpose for this video is literally to have a conversation, a part of our consultation with Alderman Farms about the permaculture design for their farm. And if you've been following along, I am in the midst of a permaculture certification course, and it's time to hand in the final design, if you will. It's the last part of our class is to hand in a design, part of an exercise to prove that we actually understood the course and we know what we're doing before we receive our certification to operate as permaculture designers. And Tommy was kind enough to offer up Alderman Farms and their property as a place for me to design on, because Tommy does have some interest in permaculture design and how it might make his farm more efficient, and may actually put some of these designs into use in the future. So it's a win-win. I get a chance to practice on a property so that I can complete my course, and Tommy gets for his participation in that, gets a copy of whatever I come up with so that he can use that on his property if he ever chooses to. So a part of this is some lesson learns. Tommy, I had an opportunity to come out to your farm, met with you and your wife, and walk around the property and ask you a bunch of questions, but probably not too far away from your house on my way back to mine, I found out, God, I wish I had asked him about this. Why didn't I think of that question while I was there? So I shot you an email with some questions that I wanted to ask you, and we finally got our schedules worked out so that we could meet together, and that's the purpose of this. This is another part of our consultation where I'm asking Tommy some more questions so he can give me some more feedback so that I can finalize the design. Okay. So with that said, Tommy, I'm just going to step right into this. And the first question I asked you in the email was relating back to the one location the soil conservation folks told you would be a good site for a dam. And I was wondering whether or not they provided you with any documentation about the soil samples they did throughout your property.
I don't think that they did. If they did, they've long since been lost because that was back. We moved to the property in 2000, and so that was around 2001 or two. So it's been quite a spell of time since they've been there.
Okay. The reason I wanted to ask you about that is because, I'm supposing, and you can clarify since you actually spoke to the people, that the reason they said that one location was viable for a dam was because the clay content was high enough in that location. Does that sound right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that's exactly right. They said of all the locations that they tested on the entire 116 acres, that was the only spot that they felt comfortable saying would hold water as it is.
Okay.
Um, I didn't have the money, still don't have the money to do commercial remediation, to soil that would not hold water, and so yeah, it had sufficient clay content there.
Well, one thing I think we should both probably keep in the backs of our mind is that if we ever do want to consider a dam site at another location, maybe they have retained those records and we can ask for another copy of them. And I think what would be beneficial that we could learn from them is what was the clay, or what is the clay content in the other locations throughout your property. So, what are we really looking at? Are we looking at bringing in a small amount of clay to mediate to amend the soil, or are we looking at bringing in straight clay that we're going to have to put a meter thick in order to seal a dam? So
Yeah.
having those records may help us down the line. If you ever get to a point where you're scratching your head saying, "Gee, I wonder just how much it would cost to put in a dam," then maybe we can go back to the soil folks and get those records and find out just how much, like I say, amendment to the soil we're looking at having to do. So,
Yeah.
all right. So then I asked you, and I cannot believe that I did not think about this when I was there on your property. It's a simple question. Is there a view from your home that you want to be sure that you keep? Or, similar but in another aspect, a view that you think you might have in the future? In other words, if you're thinking your mind's eye 10 years out and where you think pastures are going to be, that you want to make sure will be visible to you. And the purpose of this question, Tommy, is to make sure that we don't put in any kind of food forest or structures or any other kind of element in the property that would obstruct that view either now or in the future.
Yeah, and you know, for now, we don't want to obstruct anything off of the back deck of the current home in which we live in,
Okay.
which is already partially obscured by our alien proportion fig tree that you may have seen in the previous video when Jared and them were at the house. But we won't live in that facility forever. As you may recall, there's a newer home that was built on our property for Patty's mom, who lives there most of the time. And one day that'll be our home. And so, it has a back porch and it also has a front porch. And we want to protect the views off of both. Off of the front porch, we're looking out into what we call it the pasture at Mama's right now, but it probably will always be called that. And then off of the back porch, there's a view looking down into a bottom. So, those are the only views that we care anything about protecting at this point in time. I mean, anything away from the living structures, I'm not married to any view.
Okay. Now, take the opposite stance on this. Is there anything that you would rather not be visible? Is there a view from either one of those structures, either one of the homes, that you would think, man, I really don't want to wake up on the porch every morning and see, just to throw some examples out there. I know it's not really pertinent to your property since I know the layout, but I really don't want to see the hog house every time I step out on the property. I'd like to see the hogs in the pasture.
Of course, I want to see the hog house.
I know you do, Tommy. I know you, but maybe there's something else that you.
Yeah,
It's a part of the
like
farm, but when you're sitting out there with your friends and family from around, you don't necessarily want them to have to look at it. Maybe.
yeah. There's a giant 40-foot blue shipping container
Okay.
that is situated between our residence and Patty's mom's residence. That at the time we put it there was tucked into the woods. The area that's where Patty's mom's house is, we cleared that out to build that house. And when we cleared out for the house, it cleared out enough that giant 40-foot shipping container, which is filled with, of course, it's immaculately arranged inside. And if you believe that, I've got some land to sell you. But, I guess we could have it moved, but my goodness, if I could further camouflage it, that'd be great. That's the immediate thing the only thing that we consider an eyesore is that giant blue shipping container.
Okay. All right.
And it's partially concealed by some trees, but you can see it.
Okay. Now, one of the things that we're trained to look for, we're looking at these different sectors, is what we call them. So the good view sector, the bad view sector, and so on. And another important sector we think about is fire. And I know you have water protecting you on certain angles from your property, but if there were to be fire in your area, you know the area a lot better than I would, and it's hard to really research data on this without just asking somebody who lives there. Is there a particular direction that fire is more likely to approach your property from, in your opinion?
Well, let me ask what from my perspective is I mean, from your perspective, maybe a stupid question, but what determines that? Fuel, wind direction?
Yeah, fuel, wind direction, things like that. Well, in what I'm thinking about is you have that very well established creek running through your property, and so you have a natural barrier, but at the same time a very well built overstory canopy that a real strong fire could get up and over. So I mean, you don't have thinking about other properties, here's the things I might look at. A large hay field that could go up in August or September or something like that. But I don't see one at your property that
No,
would be
we've
a
got,
concern to you.
the area that would be most, let me answer it like this. The area that would be most susceptible to fire, forget about traveling at the moment, but the area that's the most susceptible to fire would be our young pine forest immediately to the east of Patty's mom's house.
Okay.
Um, it's the
Where,
thickest, it would have the most congested fuel. Most everything else is fairly thin. Not to say fire couldn't travel with it. Now, what would be, I guess, to our benefit is that would also be at the opposite end of the typical way that the wind blows. Um, the wind normally comes, from sort of the west to the east, southwest to northeast kind of thing, when systems come through and whatnot. I don't know. I may be saying things totally stupid. I've never really thought about it, but we've got pretty good curtilage around both homes. Nothing's so close that we wouldn't have time to react. But there's no question that the area that would entertain fire the easiest and quickest would be those new pine. I say new; they're not new, but the young pines to the east of the residences.
so the reason we ask that question is to try to think about ways that we can mitigate the potential disaster of a fire. And am I thinking about? You mentioned where this young pine forest is. Is it the same area that we've already talked about where you're going to put your first head of cattle?
Yes.
Okay, so we're already pretty much planning a mitigation for that by trying to put in cattle in that area. In putting cattle in that area, we're going to be cleaning out some of that underbrush and such that
Right.
would help catch fire. So
Right.
that's kind
Cattle
of
and
a
goats and pigs.
okay. That's because you pasture perfect, right?
Yeah. No, it's because pasture makes perfect.
Pasture makes perfect. That's right. The all right. So the next question I've got for you here: do you have any interest in any sort of, for overgeneralization of it, kind of put your mind on an off-grid mentality here about energy efficiency for your home. And what I want you to think about is not something that you may necessarily want to do today, but if you have any desires that may come to fruition in the future. So if you think about things like possibly ever adding solar electricity to your home, then it would be beneficial to know that now so that we do not place trees that in a location that would be detrimental to that effect down the line. There's also other changes that we could consider now. Well, let me just ask that question. Is that anything that's of interest to you?
Sure. As the technology becomes more cost efficient,
Sure.
we would love to be. If I could afford it, we'd be solar now. But we live in Mississippi, not Louisiana, and
Right.
I say that because Louisiana has some very tasty tax benefits to going solar. Where you can get like 80% or more. I don't know. Don't quote me. Look it up. If you live in Louisiana, especially, look it up because you can get a full house solar system for a fraction out of pocket of what the system costs. But we don't have that, to my knowledge, in Mississippi. And last I heard, it would be 40 or 50 grand, to fully outfit your home in solar.
Right. So, outside of adding something like solar electricity, there are some additions, or at least maybe some considerations that we can take when it comes to the physical structure itself. And in the email, I mentioned to you some pretty dramatic things. You have a beautiful back deck. The only thing that the back deck kind of takes away from you is sun exposure in the winter.
I
So
don't, yeah, but I
in
don't care. We live in South Mississippi.
okay, so it doesn't get cold enough for you in South Mississippi to care about needing to warm up the house with the sun, even if that were to take away how much wood you need to cut, because I know you chop wood.
Yes.
Okay.
No. No, I
Okay.
don't, because we're not. And number one, we're not willing to give up that haven. We enjoy that back deck. And number two, it doesn't get cold enough. Number three, we have one of the, at the time anyway, the time we bought it, one of the most efficient wood burning stoves. We never run central heat in the winter. We didn't last winter. It's been, I don't know how many, couple of years at least since we've even turned on the central heat. The wood burning stove gets it done, and it minimizes it takes less wood, because it's very efficient.
So a lot of people have commented in our first video where I came down to your property that they were interested in following along with this process. So I want to specifically mention why I ask you that question. I think even though I consider you a very good friend, it's a very awkward question to ask somebody, do you want to make a physical change to your home? And I think you kind of have to step out of your comfort zone to even ask a good friend that question. But it matters to design, because we can sit there and now I can say, okay, if he's not concerned about the sun exposure to his southern part of the house, then I can design a lot closer to your back door without having to worry about blocking that sun exposure. And so, the deck's already blocking the wall of your home from receiving sun. So if we were decide to put something else out there, which of course you already have that monster of a fig tree, so I don't it probably blocked the sun on its own, but I think it's important for design to know that, because it's not a negative thing. It's to say, okay, the homeowner wants to keep this part of their structure. Now, how can I use that to benefit the design? And it can benefit the design because now I'm not worried about keeping sun exposure to that location. So I think
Yeah,
it's
but let me put you at ease about something and tell you that you may have wasted 45 seconds explaining that to people, because I didn't feel awkward with you asking me that question at all. And
good.
and I don't think, as a designer, you should feel awkward asking people about it. It's a legitimate question. And I would proffer that not everyone would have given the same answer as me.
Sure.
You're going to run up on some people who would say, heck yeah, who maybe don't have an efficient wood burning stove or whatever, and would say, man, we've been thinking about ways to better heat our home. So I don't think it was an awkward question at all. I think it was a perfectly legitimate question, and that's your job, to ask questions that the clients aren't trained to think about.
Well, I appreciate that, Tommy, and I appreciate you offering that vote of confidence to other people who may be watching this that are going to be designers, so that they don't feel that trepidation of asking questions like that.
Sure.
Now, the last question that I asked you in the email, we kind of already touched on.
Hang on a second. That you didn't finish that question. There was another part to that question.
Let me look again.
What about the front?
Oh, yeah. Well, I had mentioned that I'm trying to think of how to explain it a little easier.
No,
The,
well,
the, the
you
purpose,
know,
what I had asked you in the email was if you would be willing to add a shade house onto the front of your home. And here, let me explain to you what, or explain to the viewers at least, what the concept of this is. Especially for us where humidity is an issue and airflow is so darn important. And this is something that I hope that we're going to make a modification to our home. Our home, I'm still paying a mortgage on it. I have no interest in trying to tear it down and build a um, like an earthen home. I mean, okay, I have an interest in it, but it's not a reality. So anyway, what we could do, an option, is you place like a shade house on the north part of your home, and you can use that as sort of a nursery for plants and so forth. And what it does is create a bubble of cool air that you can then raise your windows in the north part of your house, and then we have an exit point for the hot air and create a tunnel effect for the wind, and make that convection of air so that the hot air leaving your home causes the cool air to come in from the shade house and help cool off your home. So what do you think
yeah,
about that?
yes. See, that
Okay.
make you feel better about my no. Yes, we're definitely interested in that, and if you can tell me how to create that convection, I'm very interested because I've said this before. People who live in the sweltering humidity that we do, how did people do that? And I know they did it years ago simply because they weren't pansies like we are and accustomed to air conditioning. But I've also been in homes that were built. My cousin, who lives in the house that my dad grew up on Alderman Lane, uh, there's a constant flow of wind through that house, and I know it's because of the design. But I'm number one, not smart enough. Number two, never thought about it long enough while I'm actually there to pay attention, to the positions and all that kind of stuff to figure out how they get that to happen. And but I know, in the old days they knew how to get that to happen. And so yeah, I mean we're all about. I may not be able to make my house solar, but I'm all about using less energy than I'm using. And look, folks, it's not necessarily because I'm so green-minded that but I want to save money. I mean, electricity costs money, and I want to save as much of that green as I can too. So yeah, I'm definitely would be interested in ways that we could do that on the north side.
All right. Well, I appreciate you making sure I didn't just skip that question and make the false assumption that you weren't willing to make any kind of addition or alteration to your home. So thank you for making sure that I stuck to my guns on that. All right, so I'm going to back up now and backing up, go forward again, and ask you about the wind direction on your property. From the research I was able to do, and from living in Mississippi as well, and knowing the general direction storms take across our great state, it says that your prevailing wind is from the west. So the wind blowing from the west to the east. And I wanted to know if that felt right to you, or if you felt like, well, it does that the majority of the year, but in springtime it's always from this direction, or in winter when it's cold, it's always from this direction, and so forth.
I've racked my brain about that, Jared, and it's just not something that I've paid close enough attention to since you asked the question. But I alluded to that a few minutes ago when we were talking about fire. And I do know that, when the wind is blowing hard enough to notice it, it's coming from the west or the southwest. And radar images back that up. We get systems, anytime a storm system's coming through, it's typically coming, the whole system itself is moving southeast to northeast as it moves across. The only variation that I can think of, and this is in no way to mean that there are no other variations, but the only variation I can think of is when it's a tropical system. Then we get, and it still depends on where we end up in that pinwheel. Sometimes it's still coming from this way, but sometimes it's coming from, what I'm saying. But yeah, I would think that the prevailing winds are definitely west to east or southwest to northeast.
Okay. All right, good. And the purpose behind that question is so that we can think about, number one, whether that's a good or a bad wind. Are we looking at wind that is going to help us get the air through your home? Is it the air that it's going to put through your home? Is it going to be hot air? Is it going to be cold air? And all those sorts of things. So there's instances where we want to block that wind, and there's instances where we want to encourage it, and so on. So it's
well, I can tell you that there are no openings on the west end of our home.
So I'm going to, folks, if you were waiting for this to start up, because I know it notified a few of you beforehand, then I apologize it took so long for us to get started. Tommy and I have not done a Google Hangout in a long time, and technology changed on us. And so if I can figure out exactly what I'm doing here, I want to share my screen. Let me see here. No, oh wow, that was gorgeous, Jared. Way to go.
Hey, it's Black, and he's back.
All right, let me see if I can. All right. Tommy, can you see a what appears to be like a satellite picture with some lines all over it?
Yes.
Okay, good. So
you're going to make me put my glasses on.
I apologize, sir.
I was trying to avoid the glare.
So I want to very briefly, if that means anything to either one of us, try to recap what we spoke over and relay it to what it looks like here on a map. So I asked you about fire danger.
Yes.
And you said that to the east, that this is the larger structure that everybody can see is your current home, and then just into the wood line here is a smaller structure that is where Patty's mother is currently living, and which you expect to occupy at some point in the future.
Yes.
And you said that to the east of that, everybody can probably see the change in the tint, at least, of the pine trees, and this is the area that you thought would be most susceptible to fire, correct?
Yeah.
All right, and this is the area that we're going to design specifically for section pattern.
Let me say this too. I'm not sure the date of this aerial photograph, and so I would imagine that area right now is significantly more dense than it appears.
That's a good point to make. I'm sure it's a good 3 or 4, if not more, years old. So
yeah.
So that would be the most danger as far as fire is concerned. We're looking at the storms. Tommy, is it showing the mouse as I do this, or is it just showing?
Yeah. No, it's the little. Yeah, I'm seeing a little hand.
The little hand icon. Okay, so as the hand travels on the screen, we believe it'd be the general predominant flow of wind from the southwest toward the northeast.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's see, right where the hand is now is where your campsite is at, which I just absolutely love that site, and if I could get away with it, I'd probably hide out back there for a few weeks and take some vacation time. But
is that it? I can't see well enough.
It's right there.
Okay. Yeah, I see it.
Okay.
The hand was obscuring it.
It was. So as I look at this, Tommy, here you can see, of course, I know we discussed the property lines on this map are not precise, but you do have this caddy corner where you've got two sections here and then a caddy corner jump to another section that you own down here. Um,
Uh, no, the catty corner is going to be put your mouse right back on that crosshair between those property lines. Now move it up and to the right slightly. Boom, you're in. That's my back 40 right there.
I thought you owned the back 40 over here as
No,
well.
no, 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 no. I wish I could draw on the thing, but go back up. I mean, pull the map back down. All right. I've got three 40-acre sections. Pull it down a little more.
There's Norman. There's the stretch of road.
Yeah. One,
There's your home.
2, 3. Yeah. See, no, the front 40 is where the pine trees are. Okay, you're right. I'm sorry. You know what's got me thrown is the a little bit further on the left. There's a 40 that's divided into three.
Oh, okay.
You see that just to the left of your thing?
I do. Yeah.
I apologize. That threw me off. I saw, and so I'm thinking wrong about the size of these
So now that we're
sections.
zoomed out and everybody can see it, here we're talking about the front 40 where the
There you
cattle are
go.
looking.
That's
Here
right.
is where the home site is,
That's right.
and then across this property line is another. And
That's right.
what's great about this is, not just because of the size of your property, but because of the diversity of it. We've got some great opportunities for keeping an area what we call zone 5, or where it's just still wilderness. In other words, we don't do a thing to it but enjoy the fact that it's there and let mother nature have her place. And
Right.
if I were to put words in your mouth, I would say that you would probably enjoy for the area where that deer stand is to remain a zone 5 type of area.
Yeah.
Now everybody just threw a red flag on me that's permaculture. They said, well, if you're hunting there, it's actually zone 4. Okay, give me a little leeway here. Understand that this is a beautiful piece of the property where people probably want to come to make postcards. You're talking about a creek with a tall ravine that's got a deer stand up at the top of it. And, Tommy doesn't get very much time to go deer hunting, so I'm going to call that zone 5, because getting to go deer hunting once every 3 years does not constitute hunting for your livelihood as a zone 4.
Well,
uh,
you do understand. I hunt more often than once every 3 years. I mean, there are days that I'm out there, or there are weeks that I'm out there, several days in a row. But
I was trying to make myself feel better because I don't ever get to go hunting.
yeah, well,
All right,
sorry.
well, but the concept is that we've got areas like this young growth in the front 40 that is going to have a lot of use with the cattle, but there's plenty of area where it's going to have an opportunity to remain natural.
Yeah, for
Uh,
for the most part, sure.
sure. Okay. Um, let me take a sneak peek back over at my questions, see if there's anything else I wanted to try to.
We're all getting that sneak peek.
Yeah, I do. I do. That's why I kind of prefaced it. Let's see. Okay. Now, I do not remember this storage unit that you were speaking about a moment ago. So, if I've got my finger here right at the back corner of on the southeast corner of your home, where the stairs are to your deck. Where should I move my cursor to try and locate where this blue container you do not
You know
wish to
what?
see is?
You know what? Patty's mom's house is not even on here. It,
Because this is that little barn.
yeah, that's the little, what used to be a little barber shop. And if you go just a little bit more north, oh, right in there is where that blue shed is.
Okay. Okay.
And that may be it. That may be it from an aerial view.
Does that feel right to you? Does it
Yeah,
basically go east to west?
yeah,
Okay. I can't believe I don't remember seeing that or not. So, okay.
yeah. This is not a very current photo because you can see trails in those pine trees, and you can't see those in more recent photos.
I chose this website because the contour lines are the closest, and they're not great, but they're the closest to the actual contour lines on your property,
Okay.
and that helps me think a lot more clearly on options and design. So,
Sure, sure.
okay, so let me figure out now that I started to screen share how to stop screen share. All right.
Okay. He's back.
So I think that answered most of my questions so that I can finish up the design for you, Tommy. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to bring to my attention, or any extra questions that you have about the design, or anything?
No, I don't think so. Other than we still haven't purchased the fence that we plan on fencing those pines in. I've got to do that. I've got some money available to do it. I've just got to pull the trigger and do it. Um, then our next, we seem to have made a great connection with the fine folks down at Katrier's uh, meat processors and slaughterhouse at Kentwood, Louisiana. Um, very happy with the way they treated some hogs that I took down there to be processed. Very happy with the product, and he's very interested in developing more of a business relationship, which means we need to be figuring out a way to increase our swine herd um, in the near future. Probably sticking with the guinea hogs, maybe not. Depends on kind of what he has to say. All of that is to say this: if you remember, we talked about if you're standing on our back deck and looking down the bottom, and then there's a fence, that you can see right in front of you, but then the hill slopes down, and at the bottom of that hill, there's the back fence of that area that's fenced in. And you may recall that we talked about the area beyond that fence becoming the area where we would raise our pigs in paddocks using electric wire. And of course, the headache is going to be water, depending on how many. I don't know how many pigs we'll end up raising. I don't. But if it gets to be a sizable number, then I'm going to have to be able to have dependable water for them, without having to truck it down there. So anyway.
Now, yeah, we talked a bit about water, and you've found a spring source on your property before. We talked about ram pumps and options with that, and I know that as we walked the cut through these two sections here, that there were some pretty soggy areas and some ditches as well from runoff, and you've got a lot of possibilities. But that's good to know about that. And something that you were just saying about your possibilities for marketing your animals made me think of a question. Do you, I presume, because market animals is not something I've thought about getting into yet, but logic would tell me that you need some sort of loadout area, that you need a place where you can gather these animals together to load them up onto trucks to take them to processing. Is that accurate?
Yeah, and it's actually something I really haven't thought much about because as far as dealing that with any numbers, when we do expand location-wise, when we move them away from where we have them now, because right now where we're just loading up a couple at a time, it's not that big a deal. I've put my animals are tame. They're not afraid of me, and so what we did this last time, I brought a livestock trailer and put it in there where they were, and threw some feed up in there, and up they went. They went right in. I mean, I didn't have to herd them. I didn't have to put them in there. They went right in, and so uh, when it came time to do that, to transport them, I did the same thing. I went out very early in the morning and threw some feed up in there. They hopped up in there, and I closed it, and off we went.
So I realize that when it comes to putting this into practical application, you may need to make some changes. But if I can ask you for an instinctive or intuitive guess on where you might want that loadout to be right now, do you think it's something that you would want to attach to an area up near your road frontage, or someplace where it attaches back to the end of your driveway near where your house is? Is there a particular place that comes into mind right off the top of your head?
Well, right off the top of my head, thinking about what I just described to you a few moments ago about the area that we're contemplating putting paddocks, then it would make sense to do it on the what we call, Jared, and you may remember, as the camp driveway that goes in by where the cemetery is.
Okay, here. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Or actually, it wouldn't be that big a problem if you'll run your finger up and down between the pines where you were a minute ago. Yeah. So somewhere come down, come south. Oh, somewhere up in there, it wouldn't be a problem for us to. I say a problem. I say it wouldn't be a problem. It would be some work involved, but that's already fairly improved, as you'll recall.
Yes.
And it wouldn't take much to. And here I am sticking my finger up on the screen, trying to show you what I'm talking about.
Oh, I see it now.
Yeah. To improve that further, so that it could support a load and all that, and build that in somewhere. If you put your finger on the cemetery, somewhere, a little north of there, along that trail.
Okay.
Because the paddocks we're talking about would be, running side by side, north to south, just west of your finger.
Right.
A paddock, and then a little west, another, right.
Right.
And so we could create some kind of lane that would lead out to that lane that we walk down, where your finger is now. That would make, again, based on our current thinking of putting the paddocks there, that would make sense to have the loadout area there, and would be the easiest as far as improving that already existing lane to handle it.
Okay, now when you say existing lane, are we talking about around the edge of the cemetery and down to this drive, or
No.
the straight shot through the woods here?
I'm talking about the straight shot through the woods there. That's a fire lane, but it's a trail that we bush hog all the time, and it would probably need some gravel added to it or something, for traction purposes, because there are some highs and lows. But I think we could, it's already a lane.
Right.
It needs to remain a lane for fire break purposes, and it wouldn't have to be completely finished, because I wouldn't have to drive a truck. I have a tractor, and I could pull the trailer back there with the tractor or something. And it wouldn't be very hard for us to make. If you'll put your finger back on that line and go all the way north, we could create a road frontage right there, a road access right there.
Yeah. Okay. All right, sir. Well, I think I have quizzed you as much as I need to quiz you in order to finish up my project. I've already had fellow classmates who have been following along with the videos I was doing on my weekly overviews, and following along when I came down and visited and said, "Hey, are you done with your class?" And I said, "No, I really want to talk to Tommy one more time." And so they're kind of rubbing me with it now, and they're in the most friendly way. They're kind of rubbing me with it now, and they're done. They've already got their stuff filled in, and the fancy guy with all the videos hadn't even turned in his. So I know what I'll be working on tomorrow afternoon. All right, sir. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know it wasn't the most convenient thing for you to hop on a hangout with me on a Sunday afternoon, but I appreciate it and
Sure.
look forward to working with you.
I'm looking forward to seeing what you got for me.
All right, sir. Thank you all for watching. Again, as we said in previous videos, it will take a day or two, but you'll be able to find this video over on Alderman Farms page or on Alderman's Farms YouTube channel in just a few days. As soon as I can get to it, download it, and upload it over to Tommy's channel, and continue following along as if Tommy and I continue to work towards actually establishing any of the features that we design with this permaculture program. We do live about 2.5 hours from each other, so it's more convenient for us to talk on the phone. And if we're going to talk on the phone about anything major, we might as well try to do a hangout and bring the whole crowd in so y'all can see what's happening.
Might as well.
All right, Tommy, anything you want to say before I close us out?
No, you could. I don't know if I should say this on air or off, but are you gonna do any editing? The reason I was thinking, no. The reason I was thinking of that is because, aren't you using Camtasia?
Yes.
Because you could do the little cursor highlight filter that might help people follow that little finger on the screen if you wanted to take time to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise they can just squint like I did.
Yeah, I'll probably just I may be lazy and contribute to their vision doctors retirement there, but
all right, good.
All right, sir. One last thank you. I do appreciate your time, and thank you to everybody who's tuned in and been a part of this process as it's gone along. We'll do our best to keep you up to date. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Jared.